Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and we're here to give my predictions for the 2021 NRL Finals Series. Now, yesterday I did a video where I let Rugby League Live Forward predicted, and it predicted a Roosters victory, which I don't think is going to happen. However, it might happen, we never know. It's probably not likely, but we'll see how Rugby League Live Forward goes compared to me. Now, as of late, and in fact in previous years as well, everybody always goes back to the predictions at the start of the season. They look at ladder predictions, they just looked at predictions in general, and they always go, haha, look what you got wrong. And to be honest, I am one of them. I love to go back and have a look at my own predictions, and a lot of the times they're so far off the money. So that's why it makes this one interesting, because we're going to be trying to predict the final series. Now, there's the top 8, and I've talked about it before. I think there's only a handful of teams who can actually win it, despite there being 8 teams. But even then, in my opinion, it's very difficult because you've got lots of games, you've got lots of matchups. Sometimes teams are better, but they just don't show up on the day, or the pressure gets to them, or they're just not a final side. Look at the Eels, for example. In the past couple of years, they've been getting top 4 after top 4 after top 4, and they get knocked out every single time pretty easily. Yet you'd say they're probably a better side than, say, the Titans, but when the finals come around, maybe not, we don't know. Anyways, we're going to get into my predictions in a second, but before we do that, I just want to take the time to say, if you do happen to enjoy this video, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to use the notification bell. Don't rely on the sub box, just use the notification bell and never miss any of my videos, especially over the final series. You don't want to be missing any of my videos. Also, give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. My Facebook is Mr. Luke, but everything else is Mr. Luke and YT, including Snapchat, including TikTok. So go ahead, give me an ad, give me a follow, do all that sort of stuff. And now let's get into the predictions. So the first game, we're going to be predicting the first game of the final series. It's Melbourne Storm up against the Manly Warriors Eagles. A very, very juicy clash. 2 full-strength sides, well, at least on paper anyways. There's a lot of rumours Cameron Munster won't be playing. Probably a few others who have niggling injuries. But I'm pretty sure Munster has an actual serious injury cloud around him. So if Nico Hines goes in there, I think Manly can pick up the victory. But if Cameron Munster plays, I think Melbourne get the job done. Although Manly have been very good the last couple of weeks, they got the job done against the Cowboys. I know they scored some fantastic tries at the end, but the game was in the balance. Same with the Bulldogs. They haven't really been putting the foot down and smashing teams. I know the scoreline says yes, but in terms of actually watching the game, you can see that the other team was in it, despite where they're coming on the table and where Manly are coming on the table. And this was Manly also playing for a top 4 spot. So it's not like they were taking the gas off and they weren't really trying. They were trying. It's just things weren't really flowing for them. I know the same can be said about the Storm. Obviously, they lost a couple of weeks ago against the Eels, and that was a really great performance from the Eels. And the Eels seem to have the wood over Melbourne, which may play a part in this final series, who knows. But in terms of this game, I think if Melbourne are full strength and Manly are full strength, Melbourne win this one just like they already did this season. The Melbourne side, they're just too clinical and they have that finals experience. I know Manly, some of them have finals experience, but you look at Tom Trbojevic, I don't even think he's actually played in the finals, and if he did, it was a long, long time ago. So there is going to be a lot of pressure on Manly. Do I think they can handle it eventually? Yes, but in terms of this first game, I think Melbourne will just have too much for them. So I see Melbourne moving on, Manly getting their second chance. Now moving on to the second game, this is actually an elimination game. It's the Sydney Roosters taking on the Gold Coast Titans. This is an interesting one because I feel like you look at the form of both sides, both of them aren't playing outstanding. The Titans have been hot and cold. Roosters have also been hot and cold. However, you would say the Roosters were a lot more consistent throughout the season. Titans just scraped into the 8 through the skin of their teeth. It took them absolutely flogging the Warriors, and a lot of results went their way in the last round. Whereas the Roosters, they're fighting for a top 4 spot. However, look at both the sides. They seem a lot more even than what you would imagine. However, the Roosters have a lot of that finals experience. Titans have virtually none in their side. They don't have much at all, and if they do, there's only guys like Tino who had really played with the Storm and he was coming off the bench. Whereas the Roosters, although they've got a lot of injuries, they still have a lot of experience. You got Tedesco leading them. He's been fantastic. I know all the talk's been about Trbojevic, but Tedesco has been just as good in a lot of areas. Tedesco's been fantastic. It's just he doesn't play for a flashy side this year, that's all. But you got Tedesco there. You still got guys like Ria Hargraves. Even Josh Morris as well. I know he hasn't won a premiership, but he's played a lot of big games. And you add in all the youngsters as well. I feel like there's a good combination of it. Whereas the Titans side, they're all pretty young and they all don't have much experience in the finals. So I think that's where it's going to get them. However, I can see a guy like David Fifita just absolutely exploding in the finals too, because it's his first finals chance. So I can see it sort of going both ways, but in terms of smart money, in terms of an easy pick here, I'm going to go the Roosters, but I can easily see the Titans winning this one. I suppose that's the beauty of the finals. You can see any of these sides getting beat, especially in elimination games, because the pressure gets to them. If the Titans get a little bit of a lead, maybe Roosters will crumble and vice versa. But for this one, I've gone the Roosters moving on, the Titans eliminated. Now into the second elimination game of the first week. It's the Parramatta Eels taking on the Newcastle Knights. Another really, really good clash. This isn't like a rivalry clash, or even in terms of the past, there's not really been some incredible games between these two. But the Eels, we saw what they could do a couple of weeks ago against Melbourne Storm. In fact, they've done it twice against the Melbourne Storm. They are the kryptonite for the Melbourne Storm apparently. But every time the finals comes around, they just seem to crumble. In the past, they've gone out in straight sets. They don't get the opportunity to do that. They need to win this one. In saying that though, if you're going to come up against any of these sides, I probably want to come up against the Knights. We don't really know what they're capable of because they haven't really played at full strength at really any point this season. season. So maybe they'll be good, maybe they'll be bad. They've got Mitchell Pearce there, they've got Kalen Ponga, they've got Clemmo, they've got the Safidi boys. They've got a lot of good players in that side. It's just a matter of whether they can put it all together. And even if they do put it together, can they beat the Eels? Because the Eels are a fantastic side. The Eels rested all their players last week. They didn't care about the top 4. They just wanted to get into the top 8, and that's exactly what they did. They're here, they're ready for the finals. I think Mitchell Moses is going to step up. I think Gutherson will step up. I think a lot of the Eels boys, I think they'll be ready for this final series. They're kind of going in with underdog status, whereas when they've been in the top 4, a lot of pressure on them. Everyone's looking at them saying, top 4, this might be the year Parramatta win. Whereas this year, we're looking at Parramatta and we're like, oh, well, they're not making up the numbers, but we don't really think they're actually going to win. However, a couple of weeks ago when they beat the Storm, all the talk was, oh, well, Eels can actually win the premiership. But they get a nice little challenge here to start off their finals campaign against Newcastle Knights. I can definitely see the Knights winning this one. Like I said earlier, this is the beauty of the finals. I can see every one of these teams losing. It's just a matter of which Kalen Ponga and which Mitchell Pearce turn up. If Kalen Ponga really turns it on, they can win, no doubt. No doubt about it, but Kalen Ponga definitely needs to turn it on, and he needs to carry this Knights side. I know the Knights have a fantastic side, but I think it all revolves around Kalen Ponga, and he's definitely capable of it, but whether he does it is another story. So for this one, I'm going to be going with the Parramatta Eels. However, I still think it will be a pretty tight contest, but I think the Eels will get through with this one, and that means the Knights are eliminated. Now moving on to the last game, it's the Penrith Panthers taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. This one, I kind of have a pretty fair idea of who I think is going to win. This is probably the biggest mismatch in terms of actual games, because Penrith, they've been absolutely killing it. They're full strength. The Rabbitohs, not so much. They've been playing decent. Last week, they rested a lot of players, and you add in the fact that Latrell Mitchell isn't even there to start off with. We don't really know what they're going to offer in the finals. A lot of the combinations revolve around Latrell Mitchell now. In the past, they had some decent combinations with Cody Walker and Damien Cook and all that, but all of it at the moment revolves around Latrell Mitchell, and he's gone. Add in Blake Taaffe. I don't even know who's actually going to be playing at this point when I'm recording it. I'm assuming it's going to be Blake Taaffe. Whoever's going to be there, whatever they end up doing, it's major disruptions going into the finals, and I think there's no way they can actually win the premiership. It's just a matter of how far they're going to go in the final series. So for me, I think Penrith are going to win this one. I think they'll win it pretty comfortably. I think Rabbitohs will definitely fight in this one. I think they've got too many good players in the side to not put up a fight, and even a couple of weeks ago they took on Penrith and had a pretty good fight. But in saying that though, Penrith, I think they'll just be way too good, and I think they're really timing their run for this final series. I can see them going a long way in the finals. So that means Rabbitohs are going to need their second chance. Penrith move on to the prelims, and that means that week 2 seeds Manly take on the Roosters, and it also means the Rabbitohs take on the Parramatta Eels. So 2 really good games there. Let's start off with the first one. Manly up against the Roosters. This is a really, really good clash. This is a throwback way back to the grand final. Roosters picked up the victory then. Do I think they're going to get the victory this time? No, I don't. I think they're good enough to beat the Titans. Manly is just a whole nother level though. In fact, Tom Trbojevic is just a whole nother level. It will be interesting to see the battle of Tedesco up against Trbojevic, because we know Tedesco, he's capable of stepping up, and Trbojevic, we know he will step up. So in that aspect, I think it'll be a great battle, but in terms of the actual game itself, I can see Manly just pummeling the Roosters. Roosters just running out of steam. Josh Morris retires. Manly move on to the prelims. And then with the Rabbitohs and Eels, I think it will be a tight one. I think this will be a very close one, way closer than the Roosters and Manly. I think for this one, I think the Eels actually pick up the victory. It is a bit of an upset, and I was umming and ahhing over this one. Initially, I was thinking the Rabbitohs, but I was sort of thinking Eels, they're going to be fired up, and like I said, the pressure's sort of off them somewhat. I mean, I know it's always going to be there because it's the finals, but just in terms of previous years where they did crumble, the pressure's definitely not there as much, and the Rabbitohs also have a lot of pressure. Adam Reynolds' final season, I can see it going 2 ways. Either they really fire up and they play for Adam Reynolds, or they sort of crumble themselves. I can see them easily doing what the Eels have done in the past. Just the fact that Latrell isn't there. I know in the past they had Corey Allen step in, and he did a fantastic job. He ended up playing for Queensland for God's sakes, and then he goes to the Bulldogs and ends up in reserve grade. So it does show that they are able to carry a player at fullback, but I just can't see it happening this year. Just for me, something feels off with this Rabbitohs side, and like I said earlier, I can see the Eels being really fired up for this one and really taking it to them. Honestly though, this could go either way. I could see either of these teams winning, but like I said earlier, I'm going to go with the Parramatta Eels moving into the prelims. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. I thought they were no chance weeks and weeks ago, but the Rabbitohs, just a Latrell suspension, it just killed their season. It's just a matter of they have to keep playing a few more games until their season's officially over, but we all know they're not going to be winning the premiership. To be fair though, I can't really see the Eels winning it either, but regardless, they're moving on to the prelims. So that means in the prelims, it's the Melbourne Storm taking on the Parramatta Eels, and we have the Penrith Panthers taking on the Manly Warringah Seagulls. Now those are 2 really, really good games. I think the first one, the Eels up against Melbourne, on paper this shouldn't be a contest, but you just look at the previous results. Eels have beat them twice. Melbourne haven't beat them this year, so they are the kryptonite. I mentioned it earlier, but there's just something with the Eels play style that just throws off the Melbourne Storm. In saying that though, I think Melbourne, after losing twice coming into the final series, I think the Eels will start feeling the pressure. I think the Melbourne Storm will put a beat down on them. I think they'll be fired up and they'll be annoyed that they lost twice this year, and they they won't be letting it happen a third time. I think if it gets to this point, if Eels get to the prelims and take on Melbourne, I think the Melbourne Storm will absolutely annihilate them. I'm sorry, Eels fan. That's just how I see it going. A great effort for them to get to the prelims if they can, but Melbourne, they're just another beast, man. And I know they've beat them in the past, but this was Melbourne where they were sort of trying to get to the finals, trying not to get injured. They're sort of just coasting by. So it's a little bit different to taking on a fully motivated Storm ready to win a premiership, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit different, and I think the Eels are about to bow out. So that means the Melbourne Storm are making, yet again, another grand final, but who are they going to play? It's going to be the Manly Sea Eagles, or is it going to be the Penrith Panthers? Honestly, I think it's going to be the Penrith Panthers. I know a lot of the hype at the moment is on Manly, but I touched on it earlier. The last couple of rounds, they've been winning, and they've ended up winning by a pretty good scoreline, but they haven't been winning that well. They've been doing a lot of the flashy plays, a lot of the highlight plays. Tonja Bojovic has still been killing it, but in terms of the rest of the side, they haven't been as on as they have been throughout the rest of the season. I don't know if there's injuries, or I don't know if they're just waiting for the finals. They're just hoping to get a top 4 spot. Whatever it is, they haven't been playing as well, and Penrith, they have been playing really well. They've finally got all their troops back. I think they're timing their run for the finals perfectly. Last year, look at them, all the pressure was on them, all eyes were on them, everybody was looking at them and saying, can anyone beat this side? Whereas this year, everyone's looking at Melbourne, everyone's looking at Manly and saying, they're probably going to be in the grand final. Can anyone stop them? Penrith Panthers can definitely stop both of these sides, in my opinion. Now, are Manly capable of beating Penrith? Absolutely. They can absolutely beat them. They can put a beatdown on them for sure. But Penrith the last couple of weeks been absolutely fantastic. Going into the finals, they've got the form, they've got the players fit, and you also add in they've got finals experience after last year. So I think that's going to be very valuable to them. And they've also got that motivation after last year too. They know the hurt of losing in the grand final. They don't want to miss out on the opportunity this year, especially with all the players leaving. I think this might be the last opportunity for Penrith. So I can see them being desperate to get into the grand final. Whereas Manly, yes, it's a great opportunity for them, but it wasn't really expected at the start of the year. And Tonja Bojovic is super young, so I can sort of see them being like, yeah, we want to get to the grand final, we want to win it, obviously, but just not having the same motivation that Penrith have. So I'm going to pick Penrith to win this one, and that means it's going to be a replay of last year's grand final. It's Melbourne up against Penrith. Who's going to win? For me, I'm going to go with a bit of an upset here. I'm going to go with the Penrith Panthers. I'm going to go with them to upset the Melbourne Storm, the opposite of last year. I don't think Melbourne are going to get out to a huge lead like they did last year. I think Penrith are going to turn up. They know what to expect this time, and I think they'll be able to get the job done. I think everything's honestly just falling into place for Penrith, even in terms of how the draw went for the finals. Coming up against the Rabbitohs first off, out of all the top 4 sides, that's the team that you want. They're a team that's busted. You get to have the week off. Manly have to keep playing after losing to the Storm. You knock off them while the Storm take on a side who's their bogey side. So the Storm are going to have a tough ask. Like I said, I do think the Storm will put annihilation on them, but I think it's not going to be their grand final. I don't think anything like that, but I think they're going to put a lot into that game. And it's a preliminary final, so it's going to be a tough game regardless. Even if the score does blow out, I think it will be a tough game, a physical game. So for the Panthers, they're looking for redemption. They have a fairly fit side. I know Cleary's a little bit injured, and there's probably a lot of niggling injuries that haven't been talked about, but it's more so I can see the Storm being good enough to beat all the other sides, but just with their little role of where does Hines play, where does Pappenhausen play, where do you chuck all these other guys, what do you do with Brandon Smith, what do you do with Harry Grant? I can just see that being too much of an ask to beat the Panthers in the grand final. Panthers are going to be so hungry, man. I just can't see them losing if they get to the grand final against the Storm. On the other hand, though, I can honestly see the Storm winning it as well. It'd just be such a Melbourne Storm thing to do, to come against the Panthers, a red hot Panthers, and then beat them again, just like they did last year. But pretty much going through all these games, I don't really know. Like, a lot of them, they're so close. So either of the teams could win, and it's so hard because you look at one game, you go, oh no, round 1, I don't know who to pick. Going on to round 2, then you're like, if I pick the other team, would they have been able to beat that team? Just things like that. So it's so hard to do a prediction throughout the whole final series rather than game by game. But look, those are my predictions. The grand final of the Melbourne Storm up against Penrith, a replay of last year with Penrith picking up the victory. Let me know in the comment section below what are your thoughts of the predictions, and also what are your predictions for the finals. I'd love to see your whole finals predictions, not just the grand final. I want to see the whole finals. So definitely let me know. Now, if you happen to enjoy this video, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also make sure to use the notification bell. I mentioned it earlier. Don't miss any of my videos. Don't rely on the sub boxes. Use the notification bell and be notified immediately on your phone or whatever device you're using. So definitely use the notification bell. Also give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. My Facebook is Mr. Luke, but everything else, including Snapchat, including TikTok, is Mr. Luke and YT. So go ahead and give me a follow. Give me an ad. Do all that sort of stuff. And like I said, stay tuned for more content on the channel. Plenty of stuff to talk about in the final series. Going to be making videos every day. So stay tuned and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. See yous.